You know what? It's been a long time since we just did a ridiculous movie, so here we go. This is 2015's Zombeavers. That's right, Zombeavers. Bet you never thought you'd hear that, did you? Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it for yourself. Links to the film are in the description. We start by seeing Joseph and Luke drive around their small town, and they're opening up about some of the deepest moments in their life. Between dating a guy for 1 week and being banned from using another friend's bathroom, the two of them are just bearing it all. While Joseph looks at his phone, Luke asks him if he sees the deer in front of them, and Joseph assures him that he does. I don't think you do. Safe assumption since the deer ends up getting plastered all over the front of the truck in a second. Luke's casual tone is what really sells the scene though. During the crash, one of the toxic waste containers tumbles off the back of the truck and lands in the river. After Luke tells his partner that the deer isn't going to make it, they go about their day, and we watch as the toxic container floats down the river. The intro here feels very 80s horror, but with some next-level animation antics. I'm all for it. It's almost like a Backwoods James Bond theme opening. Then look at the beavers! They look like nightmare fuel before they turn into flesh-hungry zombie monsters. I almost never want to see a regular beaver again in my life after seeing them. Next, we see Jen crying in a gas station bathroom, and her boyfriend Sam messages that he's sorry. She calls him out on being a liar, and she reapplies her makeup. Eventually, she heads back to the car where Zoe and Mary are waiting to get to the cabin. Meanwhile, at the lake, a boy's fishing, and he seems to have caught a really big one. Then he loses his pole as the fish pulls it into the lake, and a creature sneaks up behind him and attacks. When the girls get to the cabin, they notice the anchored raft in the middle of the lake, and Zoe thinks that it's a piece of trash just floating around. Zoe's about as city as it comes. They grab their bags and head towards the cabin, and Zoe sends her dog off to chase squirrels. After talking about the glory of nature, Mary reminds the girls to play nice when the next-door neighbor comes over. Mary introduces her sorority sisters, and then she explains that they're just having a relaxing weekend getaway thanks to the cheating boyfriend. Zoe tries to play the slutty friend, but the neighbor surprises them when she talks about her own daughter being a slut. I mean, this woman just tears her daughter down, being promiscuous, bringing home questionable people, and she even comes out and says that the girl just isn't that attractive. Mother of the year, people. After the neighbor heads back home, the girls go inside, and they make themselves right at home. Jen tries to go to the bathroom to sneak onto her phone, but there isn't any service. When she comes back to the living room, Mary calls her out on trying to talk to Sam, and she says that if Zoe can make it without a cell phone, so can she. Just on cue, Zoe screams from the bathroom because there's no service, and Mary has to tell her that there's a landline in case of emergencies. Zoe legitimately has no idea what a landline is. How many of you remember those? How many of you remember not being able to use the internet that came on a CD at the time? Wow. The girls get changed, and they head out to enjoy the sun and lake. Suddenly, Zoe decides that she's going to get a tan without lines, and she heads on into the lake. The three of them relax on the raft, and we see a hat float behind them from the boy before. Just then, the girls notice the beaver dam that's blocking up the lake, and they decide to swim over to it. Why, zombie creatures or not, would you want to swim over to an animal's house that has teeth big enough to poke a hole in your skull? Once they reach the dam, they notice the toxic green goo all over the dam. Suddenly, a bear appears, and Zoe decides that she's going to be modest for the bear. If a bear pops up like that, I'm sorry, but my first reaction is not going to be making myself decent for the bear. I'll run naked through the woods all the way back to the cabin before I even think about my clothes. Just then, a gunshot's heard, and the bear retreats into the woods. Smith appears from the tree line, and Mary introduces the girls. When Jen says that they're looking for beavers, Smith warns them that they should just stay away from any beavers if they find any. Then he warns them that they should think about covering up since there are families around, and everyone goes their separate ways. That night, Mary pops some popcorn, and the three of them play Would You Rather. As the night goes on, a knock comes from the door, and Zoe goes to investigate. Once all three of them go outside, the door closes and locks behind them, and a figure runs at them from the trees. After the figure farts in their direction, Mary recognizes that it's none other than her boyfriend, Tommy. Then Zoe shows up with her boyfriend, Buck, in hand, and then we see Sam show up. Nope, send him away. Walk back to civilization. Get rid of him. He's literally the whole reason they went up there in the first place. You mean to tell me that Jen's just going to give in and let him stay? That's exactly what she does. Mary tries to tell them that they need to go, but everyone convinces her, and Jen even goes along with it. Once they get back inside, Buck and Jen sit on the couch as they listen to the other couples get it on. Buck and Zoe are nowhere near quiet. They could scare the zombies away if they had to. When Sam tries to ask what she's really mad about, Jen shows him a picture of him kissing another girl at a party, but we can't really see the girl's face. He tries to blame it on being really drunk, but that's not good enough for Jen. She slaps him a couple of times, but halfway to the bedroom, Sam comes onto her again. Jen takes this chance to knee him in his jewels, and he's left alone with the dog. After everyone finishes their bedroom circus act, Jen heads to the bathroom to take a shower, but she's surprised by a thump coming from the shower. When she opens the curtains, a Zombeaver jumps out at her. Look at that thing! I didn't think it was going to get more disturbing than the real beavers, but they found a way to pull it off. This is low-budget creature feature gold. Jen runs out of the bathroom and everyone comes out to see why she's screaming. She tries to explain what she saw in the bathroom and they take a bat to investigate. Tommy goes first with the bat, and there's nothing there. But when Buck heads in, a Zombeaver appears from under the bathroom sink. Tommy hits it over and over, but he just can't seem to kill it. Eventually, he thinks that he killed it, and they toss it in a garbage bag on the porch. Everyone heads inside to drink that nightmare away, but no one seems to have an idea as to why the beaver looked like that. Jen brings up the possibility of leaving that night, but no one's on board with that. Buck has the genius idea of a safety orgy, but he's the only one agreeing to it. To top it off, the garbage bag with the Zombeavers moving on the front porch. If more than 2 of them survive this, I'll be surprised. The next morning, everyone goes outside to enjoy the lake, but Jen notices that the beaver's gone. Tommy assumes that a wild animal came up to take it away, but no one's really all that worried about it. Mary and Sam relax on the raft while Jen sits on the shore, and Sam asks her if she's going to come out about being the mystery girl in the picture. Tommy notices them getting a little close, but he turns his attention to getting Jen in the water again. Jen finally puts her feet in the lake, but just then, something brushes against her legs. Everyone jokes around, but when Buck gets pulled underwater, he comes back to the surface with his foot in his hand. Now that everyone's panicking, they swim for the raft, and they try to figure out what's going on. Suddenly, Sam notices the beavers swimming towards them. I would just assume that all of nature's against me at this point. When beavers retaliate, you know something else in the animal kingdom has a grudge against you too. I honestly forgot beavers were animals before watching this movie. Beavers start to tear apart the raft, and Jen has a beaver follow her into the cabin. As a last-minute strategy, Sam throws the dog into the lake to distract the beavers. They take this chance to swim back to shore. Meanwhile, the beaver that's attacking Jen literally pulls itself apart as it chases her onto the kitchen island. She stabs it through the head, but that doesn't even stop it. After everyone makes it inside, they gather around the beaver in the kitchen, and they try to figure out what's going on. Finally, Jen brings up the fact that the beaver's actually a zombie. The beavers even chew through the landline phone cable. After a little fight between the girls and Zoe, Zoe comes out and tells Jen that it was Mary in the picture. And now everyone's mad at everyone. Suddenly, the beavers start thumping their tails to intimidate them. And I've got to say that I would say it works. I'd just call this a day and let the beavers win at this point. Eventually, Tommy agrees to take Zoe, Buck, and Buck's foot into town. But there's no guarantee that they'll even make it to the car. Quickly, they rush and hop to the car. And they make it to the car. Mary watches as they drive away, and now they start to wonder if they should have just gone with them too. It's a little too late for that. What's even better is the neighbor's explanation for the banging that his wife hears. Oh, it's just those kids scissoring each other to Lady Gaga. This movie is full of first statements that I'd never thought I'd hear. That one tops them all though. I'll never listen to Lady Gaga the same either. When the neighbor's wife goes upstairs, he goes to pet his dog, and it turns out to be a Zombeaver. Tommy keeps driving them away from the cabin, but eventually they come across a tree that's blocking the road. They find an abandoned truck on the other side, and Tommy finds an axe and guns. He gives the axe to Zoe, and he sends her and Buck back to the cabin. Suddenly, a tree falls on Tommy, and that's the end of that. Just as a beaver leaps at Zoe, Smith shows up and shoots the beaver down. Zoe, Buck, Smith, and Buck's foot hop into his truck, and they take it back to the cabin. At the same time, the survivors in the cabin just finished boarding up the cabin. I'm sorry, but the way these college kids are handling this situation really makes you wonder how they even plan to survive in the real world. I don't even think they could swat a mosquito if they had to. When the beavers show their face again, Smith and the couple head for the neighbor's house, and they look around to find the neighbors. Everything is silent, and Smith isn't too optimistic about their chances of finding the neighbors alive. As they search the house, they find one dead downstairs, and the phone wires are chewed. Back at the cabin, Mary reads about beavers, and they end up talking about the mistake Mary made of kissing Sam. Yeah, cause this seems as good of a time as any to talk about your friendship and stealing each other's boyfriends. When they get back to the book, Jen reads that the beavers can build tunnels, and they start to question if any beavers are inside yet. Over at the neighbor's house, Smith finds the wife upstairs dead, and he tells Zoe that she should just chuck Buck's foot. It's too late for that. He also brings up the helpful fact that beavers are more active at night, since they're nocturnal. He explains that they should just hole up in there for the night, but I don't think they'll make it that long. Over at the cabin, Mary lies down for a moment, but she's disturbed when Jen creeps into her bed. After about a few seconds of hotness, we see that Jen's transforming into a human beaver. This movie gets points for the horror genre, because just when you think it can't get any weirder or disturbing, it does just that. Ugh, look at her. What would you do if you were face to face with her? Sam knocks Jen Beaver in the back of the head, and they make their way out of the bedroom. Meanwhile, Smith gets ready to cauterize Buck's wound. But Buck transforms into a human beaver too. As Buck feasts on Smith, Zoe aims the rifle at him, and she shoots Smith before trying to leave. Sam and Mary barricade Jen in the bedroom, and Jen starts thumping her beaver tail on the cabin floor. Soon, more beavers start tearing through the floor, and Sam tries to beat each of them down. At the neighbors, Zoe has to deal with the beaver neighbor upstairs. But instead, she decides that jumping out the second-story window is the best solution. Points for quick thinking and not being too scared to go above and beyond with escape tactics. Sam and Mary fight their way to the cabin bathroom, and they decide to check each other for zombeaver bites. After Mary gets Sam to take off all of his clothes, he has her do the same. If you thought that this was the perfect time to get it on, then this is your kind of movie. To top it off, a beaver decides to set itself on fire, and Jen breaks into the bathroom to eat Sam's junk. I'm not even exaggerating. This is that kind of movie. Mary goes to leave, but the fires cut her off. Zoe busts through the wall with the truck, and Mary hops in just in time. The two girls drive right past zombie beaver Smith, but she runs into a tree in the process. Suddenly, all sorts of zombie beaver neighbors start walking out of the woods. The bear from earlier is even a zombie beaver now. This is pure cinema gold, guys. It doesn't get much better than this. Zoe gets the truck going again, and as they drive down the road, zombie beaver Jen pops up on the roof. Zoe slams on the brakes and runs her over, and they make it past the final zombeavers. Eventually, Zoe gets them to the owned trees, and the girls get out to continue on foot. They walk past zombie beaver Tommy, who's still pinned under the tree, but Mary ends up pulling a gun on Zoe. Mary accuses Zoe of being bitten, but suddenly, Mary's the one to turn. Zoe puts an axe in her head and tries to finish her off before continuing. It takes a few swings, but she eventually makes her way down the road. She notices a truck coming her way, and it ends up being Luke and Joseph again. Luke asks if Joseph sees the girl in the road, and he assures him he does. He doesn't. Then, the credits roll. These are the best movies. Movies that know they aren't a serious horror movie, and they embrace it. With a name like Zombeavers, you show that you already embraced it though. Give it a shot. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.